Very good. Very good.
In China.
We want to call the meeting to order. So I want to ask that we all be upstanding so that we can do the national anthem. Thank you. I want to request that you all sit down. So I want to welcome all of you to this our event where we'll be launching a contextualized methodology of SDG 16.10.1. I want to recognize all the partners that are present, government, non-government, and development partners. And I would want to ask that we do a quick round of introductions before we get into the main exercise of launching the methodology. So, Ali, I want to ask that you share the microphone with the people to introduce themselves. So you can introduce your name and the institution where you work.
Good morning. I'm Ali Damos from Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Personal Assistant Commissioner Sarah.
Good morning. Sidan Kelvin. I work with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and the period to Commissioner of Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Titus Osioka. I represent a community-based organization by the name of Hadi Achievers, Farm CPO based in Ukraine, and we are SDG champions at the grassroots level.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Francis Auma from Muslim Human Rights.
Good morning. My name is James Ifuna from the Catholic University of Amsterdam.
Good morning. My name is Joseph Kabu. I'm representing NCP, National Council of People with Living with Disabilities.
Good morning. My name is Joseph Massa from Bureau of Statistics.
Gabon, naitwa Wilfred Ola, mwakilishi Social Justice Centers. Asante.
Good morning. My name is John Nyami. I'm here representing the Director of Internal Affairs Unit, National Police Service.
Good morning. My name is Shao Karaoke. I'm with the Kikuta Shirin.
Good morning. I'm Sherry Chemistui from Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
And my name is Ines Samuel from Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Good morning. I'm Shanta Vera, representing the National General.
Good morning. My name is Yamori Yohenjo from the Center for Minority Rights Development.
Good morning, everyone. My name is from the city.
Morning, everyone. My name is Bunda from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics.
Morning, my name is Rosemary Cohen from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics.
I'm Jamboni. My name is Lilian Award from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Mira Aura from the National Bureau of Statistics.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Odanga Canada from UNB.
Good morning. My name is Chelsea Ortiz from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics.
Good morning. My name is Alex Doroge from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex, and thanks you, colleagues, for your introduction. Excuse me. I want to briefly take you through the program. We expect to have an event that will last slightly under 2 hours. So we are done with the first session, which was introductions. We will get to the next session, which will be brief remarks. And brief remarks, we have brief remarks from the partners that have been part and parcel of this process. That is the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the National Bureau of Statistics, KNBS, and then from the Chair of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And once we are done with the remarks, we'll get to the business of the day, which will be talking about the methodology. And just before we speak about the methodology, we want to just briefly take you through the MOU that the Commission has had with the National Bureau of Statistics. So speak about just a brief history of it, the areas that we have worked on, the opportunities that we see as forthcoming, and areas in which we think other partners also need to engage in moving forward for purposes of giving life to data, as we have entitled our launch today. Then immediately after that, we'll invite Dennis from National Bureau of Statistics just to speak to us briefly about methodologies for collecting data on sustainable development goals. Then we'll quickly tie that to the contextual methodology that we have developed on SDG 16.10.1, and then immediately after that we'll have a brief plenary, and then we will launch the methodology for utilization, and then that will be the end of the event. So at this point, allow me to invite Lee from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights just to give brief opening remarks, and then after that we'll have someone from the National Bureau of Statistics. So Lee, welcome.
Continuing journey between Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics on advancing a human rights-based approach to data. And as Samson said, the MOU between KNCHR and KNBS has really been it's been a journey of collaboration and partnership. And I want to say also that it's been a real innovation. This was one of the first MOUs globally between a national human rights institution and the National Statistical Office. So this is really an advance coming from Kenya, and I think that the methodology that's going to be launched today is just another step in the continued collaboration towards really advancing a human rights-based approach to data in the sustainable development goals, and making sure that in this development journey that no one is left behind. So just from the part of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Globally, the UN Human Rights Office has worked with national partners to implement the human rights-based approach to data. And in this regard, OHCHR has supported the development and inclusion and is now supporting the implementation of the the environment. And it's also an important governance tool to ensure that in tracking government progress against its own development and economic agenda, there's the required information to be able to analyse how this is advancing the interests of all Kenyans. Specifically in relation to the tool being launched today, it relates to SDG 16 on peace, justice and strong institutions. And Goal 16 addresses various dimensions of civil and political rights, access to justice and fundamental freedoms. And globally, the UN Human Rights Office is the custodian of some indicators that are used to measure progress by governments against SDG 16. And this includes Indicator 16.18.1, which relates to the numbers of cases of killings, kidnappings, enforced abuses against journalists, media personnel, trade-unionists, and human rights advocates. And this indicator is really seeking to measure the protection of fundamental freedoms, knowing that the space for human rights defenders, for journalists, is very critical for the enjoyment of all rights, and that human rights violations perpetrated against human rights defenders, against journalists, against trade unionists, not only affect those individuals, but also have a detrimental effect on the enjoyment of human rights across society. So this is it's really important to be able to gather statistical information on this indicator to look at various risk factors that can affect this space, whether they be structural, related to risks, or related to results. So this is what the indicator is seeking to measure. And OECHR has been assisting globally on the development of tools to measure this indicator. And this is really the spirit in which we've been working with OECHR and KBS on the process of developing this methodology for gathering official data on using a whole society approach to measure progress against Indicator 16.10.1. In the past in Kenya, there have been previous voluntary national reviews on progress against the Sustainable Development Goals. This Indicator 16.10.1 hadn't been prioritised because there was no set methodology for gathering, analysing data on this indicator, which is why it's so important that NCHR and KNDS have worked together with this journey with other partners for sitting in this room today to be able to develop this methodology, which will then feed into the next voluntary national review, which I believe will be probably in 2024. So I think that this is very, very timely. So, and I think that this is also a very significant step because the methodology gathers information from government institutions such as the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, also from justice system actors, including ODPP, IPOA, National Police Service, Judiciary, National Council on Administration of Justice, but very importantly also, it utilizes citizen-generated data from civil society organizations. So this is really a whole of society approach in measuring progress in Kenya against this indicator. So I think that that's really just what I wanted to say as opening remarks, but really it's part of a continuing journey. I know that Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and Kenya National Bureau of Statistics will also be renewing their memorandum of understanding, and we're looking forward as OECHR to continue to work with you in this partnership towards really advancing human rights-based approach to data for SDGs and human rights.
Thank you so much, Lee, and thank you for reminding us that the MOU between the Commission and KNDS was one of its own globally. And I think we've traveled far and wide just to share our experiences. There are also several countries that have just come to benchmark on how this has happened. I think the commitment from the NCHR leadership is to ensure that we continue to share these lessons, but also to make the MOU more meaningful will to use data for planning to ensure that there's better protection and protection of human rights. So we continue to appreciate the support, both technical and financial, that the CHR has always provided to Commission and KDS. And I think it's been a good journey over the 5 years. So as we work towards renewing the MOU, we are keen on looking some of the lessons that have been learned and ensuring that it gets much better for the next period. So thank you so much. So at this point, I want to invite Mr. Wes from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics to give his opening remarks. And then our chair will come in, and chair, as you come in, we will give an opportunity for the members in the table to introduce themselves just before you make your remarks. Karibu.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not the DG, it is supposed to be most of the remarks, but he's committed somewhere else on official duty, and he has sent me to give his speech. So, as you are told, my name is Wes Abukir, and my DG's name is Contact. So let me just read the speech, although I came early, and my eyes. So if you see me struggling, please allow me to struggle. Yes. Okay, this is the remarks from our DG, as I've said. It is on the indicator 6010.1. This is an indicator we usually supposed to have collected as Bureau. We have a frame which we collect a number of indicators, and I know we have collected a number of indicators from around 128 targets. So, and we are supposed to be reporting. So I think this one will be very important for this indicator. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is our joy, the Human Rights Fraternity, to have initiated the process of collecting data for SDG 16.10.1 by coming up with an indicator framework that is meant to give a guideline on how to measure or collect data for the indicator. I believe the indicator is meant to address enjoyment of fundamental freedoms like freedom of expression and access to information, freedom of association, among others. KPS has the responsibilities of updating the national indicator framework for the SDGs annually and ensuring the data is collected as required. Specifically, KPS role on this indicator shall be to ensure that the indicator is included in the national SDG Indicator framework. The data is collected on an annual basis in a coordinated manner and also be of high quality for ensuring completeness, timeliness, consistencies, among other quality attributes. The source of data must be well established and there should be no overlap among the reporting institutions. I know different institutions, including the civil society organizations, have been collecting data on this indicator. But we now want to harmonize this and ensure all the institutions involved in collecting this information are reporting to one institution, that is Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And also ensure that the data collected is owned by the government as official. There are 10 fundamental principles of official statistics which we must adhere to before we accept any data. Good enough for various stakeholders have been taken through the 10 principles. So whenever we collect we have the indicator, there are some of the areas we have to look at. One is the relevancy, impartiality, and equal access. Two is professional standards and ethics. We also have accountability and transparencies. We have to look at whenever we have these indicators. We have the sources of official statistics, as indicated earlier. Confidentiality, and here when we talk of confidentiality, if it touches on individual or personal information or household information, we don't give that information. Usually it should be aggregated there. Then legislation, we have an act, the Statistics Act 2006. So we operate under that act, which was amended in 2019. Then it should be the other area is national coordination. So we have to coordinate, make sure that we coordinate. For example, when we are having this frame, we have the coordination aspect of it. We coordinate, in other words, to get these indicators, as I've told earlier. We have to follow some standards, particularly international standards, and we have to have international cooperation for indicators to be collected, because the indicators have to be comparable. The definition must also be understood by all data producers. For example, at what point do we say a case is verified? There must be clear and be taken through, and should be taken through this, and we now understand what they are. There's also need to have a common database with unique identifier of the reported cases to avoid double count of underreporting. The definitions are clearly stated in the framework, but there is need for common understanding of terms and concepts, like at what point do we say a case is verified? What do we mean by killing, kidnapping, enforced disappearance, arbitrary detention, torture, journalists, trade-unionists, human rights aspects? So we have to know how do we define them before we have that indicator. As a National Statistical Office, we promise to work together with our stakeholders and support in the collection of accurate and reliable information on this SDG indicator. In addition, we are willing and ready to review the MOU between KNPS and KNCHR in order to ensure no group is left behind. Otherwise, I wish you fruitful discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. West, and I see our chair is coming. Chair, I would request that the government themselves.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. How are you today? How are you? It's nice to see you all here with us this morning. I think it's really gratifying to see a lot of our partners in the room. I'm happy to see Imlu. Guri is here with us, all the way from Mombasa. Thank you so much for joining us. Ahadi, all the way from Machakos. Makweni, thank you so much for coming all this way. Walad from the Social Justice Center, karibu sana. Kituo cha Sheria, that's our regards back when you go there. UN Women, asanteni sana. And the Center for Minority Rights as well is in the room. Thank you so much to see you. I'm also happy to see state entities such as GEC is in the room. Thank you so much. Pass our regards to your chair when you go back. Internal Affairs Unit, pass our regards again to the Director. DCI, National Council for People with Disabilities. Thank you very, very much. I think IPOA has also joined us. Someone from IPOA is in the room? I see. Karibu sana. Thank you too for joining us. And we also have human rights institutions. We have the Danish Human Rights Institution represented here. We thank you so much for being with us here. And of course our partners, OCHCR and Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, Karibuni sana. Thank you so much everyone for being with us this morning. You know, you can call a party. You remember that story in the Bible? Where you throw a party and then everybody says, I cannot come. So we are happy you came and we are very, very gratified to be with you this morning. Before I proceed, I'd like to introduce, we have commissioners from the KNCHR with us here this morning. We have the Danish Institute, we have ODPP represented. Or did I also mention ODPP as one of the state partners? Sorry about that. Present in the room, thank you too. So I'd like them to introduce themselves before I can speak and start with you, Carol.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carol Rask, and I'm from the Danish Institute for Human Rights. Really nice to be with you today.
Thank you.
God is good.
All the time.
And all the time.
God is good.
Yeah, my name is Tabitha Owia, Senior Assistant DPP. I'm in charge of the Civil Rights Division. And it's my pleasure to be here as I represent my boss, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Asante.
Sana.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sarah Fernanda. I'm a commissioner with Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dr. Nyeris Raymond, Vice Chairperson, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Thank you, Sana. Lee has spoken here, so you all know Lee. She's also on the same team. I'm going to drop this down. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and indeed a great pleasure to be a part of this occasion. It is a momentous occasion for us when we are able to launch a contextualized methodology on SDG 61. This is an agenda that is very topical now for us as a country, and I think we wouldn't have done this at a more opportune time. The shift from Millennium Development Goals to Sustainable Development Goals marked a transformative moment in which human rights took center stage in national planning and development. A few years back, you wouldn't have seen human rights intersecting with a lot of these agendas that we do today. I think even the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics would not have been infusing human rights into its data collection. So I think these are great milestones and things we are totally grateful for. The Commission is obligated to ensure state compliance with human rights obligations, international human rights obligations, and in engaging with the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics through the help of the OCHCR, we have been able to actually secure this mandate by working on this contextualized methodology. SDG 16, as we all know, addresses peace and inclusive societies, access to justice for all. And in Kenya, we actually focus on the killings, torture, arbitrary detentions, kidnapping, and enforced disappearances. And I was happy to hear the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics asks for what do those words really mean? What do those words really mean to us? We hear about killings. What's the difference between a killing and an enforced disappearance and a kidnapping? So I think here he's right to ask that, but when you'll be talked to later, you may be able to understand what all those issues mean. In 2018, the number of people fleeing war, persecution, and conflict exceeded 70 million, the highest level ever recorded by the United Nations High Commissioner of Rights. And in almost 70 years, and in the Kenyan context, killings, torture, arbitrary detention, and kidnappings became and remained a thorny issue, despite various strides undertaken in the law, policies, and practice at the domestic level. We all remember very clearly the number of bodies that were discovered in Yala not too long ago. We actually all remember that in the last 2 or 3 months, there have been several cases of disappearances, which are not explained to date. We all remember the Indians who disappeared, the Indian nationals who disappeared just around the election time. and their bodies, possibly their skeletons possibly have turned up. We're waiting for reports on that. So those are issues that we continue to see and intersect with. So that this time, the launching of the contextual methodology at this very time is very, very, very crucial, as it will help us also to have data. And with data, we are able to plan. And if we plan accordingly, then we are able to actually take up action to remedy the issues properly. So we are really, really grateful to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics for the role they play in documenting this data. And I like it when I had the director's representative say that they will only put into the data verified information. So that means that the data we will get is reliable. It's data we can rely on. Right now we have a lot of data flying around about the number of people who have disappeared, the number of people who have been kidnapped, the number of people who have been killed. But verification still remains a dicey issue, because sometimes we're probably double counting the same statistics so that it blows up. Sometimes we think this is the same statistic and omit it from the data. So I think once we have the data, planning and policy going forward will be very, very easy to do. I want to congratulate the government of the day for actually taking big strides, and the Office of the ODPP in actually taking strides towards trying to resolve this issue of enforced disappearances, and also the Office of the DCI, please pass our regards, the IAU, and IPOR as well, for moving together to try and work into these issues of enforced disappearances. We recognize the steps and strides being taken to try and resolve those issues, and we actually would like to call upon the government to move into the arena of ratifying the protocol in this area, so that we are able to be accountable internationally and under international standards on the issue of enforced disappearance and extrajudicial killings. So as we applaud government, we call on government as well, and in our role as advisor, we will be making this advisory to government to sign and ratify that protocol so that we can therefore domesticate it and apply it locally. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite you to this session so that we are taken through the technical issues before we finally launch. And thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, for speaking the same language with KNBS. I think for those of us that have been part of this journey, when we began the conversation about signing an MOU with the National Statistics Office, I think the question was, what does data have to do with human rights? Because people from the statistics do not understand data and human rights. And people from the Commission would also not understand human rights and data. And therefore, few of us that have been champions of this, we've had a long but a very fruitful and fulfilling journey where people from both sides have come to appreciate that data is important. Data controls each and everything that you do. Data controls programming. Data controls promotion and protection of human rights. And we are greatly elated. I've said this to my colleagues at National Bureau of Statistics that the day we would have this methodology applied, and the day you would have these institutions that contribute to the data which is not verified, the day we will have their data verified through the Commission, some of us will literally sleep with shoes, because we would have achieved. Because as has been pointed out by the chairperson, and I think even by Mr. Awes, that this data is out there. Several institutions that are seated in this room today generate a lot of data. But the question has always been, what is the verification process? And KNBS is very particular that if data is not verified, they will not accept it, and it will not get into the national indicator framework. So the purpose of the methodology that we are launching today is to ensure that this data is verified and it gets into the national indicator framework. So I would briefly want to take you through the most spoken about MOU between the Commission and the National Bureau of Statistics. So I'll speak briefly about our establishment for those that are interacting with us for the first time. Then I'll speak to how the collaboration between KNBS and KNCHR began. Then briefly touch on the contents of the MOU. And then the impacts of the partnership between KNCHR and KNBS. And then finalize by some of the few lessons that we have learned in the process. So the Commission is established under Article 59 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And this has been operationalized through the KNCHR Act of 2011 and revised in 2012. In terms of membership, we have a chairperson and 4 commissioners who are appointed in accordance with the constitutions through a competitive process. Names submitted to the National Assembly to the President for appointment and then gazettement. We are present in 5 regions across the country, in addition to the headquarters office. So we are present in Northern Kenya, in Wajir, Western Kenya in Kisumu, North Rift in Kitale, Central region in Nyahururu, and of course the Nairobi regional office. So the mandate of the Commission is to promote and protect human rights. And this is done through our various programs at the Commission. So we have a program on complaints and investigations that receives complaints on a daily basis on human rights violations on different aspects. We have a program on reforms and accountability, which deals with the reforms of public institutions. So that works with the police, with the prisons, with the judiciary, and all these other institutions of the state that are charged with the promotion and protection of human rights. Then we have a division on redress that deals with redress of human rights violations that have been brought in through the complaints. Then we have a division on ECOSOC, which deals with ECOSOC rights, right to education, right to water, clean environment, sanitation, and all those. Then we have, of course, the regional offices that deals with very specific regional issues in the various areas where they are established. So it is through those programs and our regional offices that we are able to deal with issues of promotion and protection of human rights at different levels. Then the Commission is the designated principal organ of the states in ensuring that the state complies with national, regional, and international human rights instruments. And this is done through our division on research and compliance that help in reporting at the international level on our various obligations that we have ratified. Then the Commission has also been given additional mandates. If you look at the Prevention of Torture Act 2017, the Commission has a central role to play in ensuring that cases of torture are dealt with as required. Then we have also been given additional mandate on the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, where we are designated as the National Monitoring Agency. So in addition to the mandates that have been provided under Article 59 and of course through the Act, through the KNCHR Act, we have the additional mandates under CRPD and the Prevention of Torture Act. So quite a mouthful work to be undertaken by the Commission in ensuring that there's promotion and protection of human rights. So how did the collaboration begin? And I take you back to the background of this was the adoption of the 2030 Agenda by the UN, by all the UN members of which Kenya is a member. And the clarion call for the 2030 Agenda is leaving no one behind. And when we speak about leaving no one behind, it is about ensuring that all the programs that we undertake, all our intervention strategies, every person is not discriminated, no person is discriminated, and all necessary measures are taken to ensure that we bring all on board. So the call to leaving no one behind has 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and 169 targets. Now, these have been brought down home under Kenya's Vision 2030, which is our national blueprint for socio-economic development. Now, that is now put together again with the Military Declaration on really what is the role to be carried out by national human rights institutions in ensuring that the 2030 agenda is achieved by the UN member states. So again, the Commission gets an important role in ensuring that when it comes to implementation of the SDGs, it has a central role as a national human rights institution. And then closely linked to that is the Kigali Declaration and the Plan of Action, again, on ensuring that there's achievement of the 2030 agenda. So these four put together in 2017, the Commission and the National Bureau of Statistics, Department of Justice, and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights started having conversations. And the conversations at that time was the fact that the National Bureau of Statistics is the state's agency that is required to provide data for programming. And again, that data is used for reporting at the international level. But we were aware of the fact that while KNBS has this important role, they do not generate data themselves. And the data that they have is generated by institutions, which takes to them for verification, and then they use that for programming and sharing at the international level. And KNBS had expressed the fact that they were having challenges on accessing some of the data under the SDGs. And the fact that they could not access this data means that Kenya would not report on it on one end, but on the other end, it means that programming using that data was difficult. And therefore, we started persuading the National Bureau of Statistics that while you have your strength on issues of processing and managing data, you do not have a strength on issues of human rights. So the focus really was, how do we bring these two aspects together so that KNBS focuses on data and the Commission focuses on human rights. And then we use these two for mutual interest and willingness for the two institutions to ensure that each of our strengths are used for purposes of ensuring that there's protection, promotion and promotion of human rights, protection and promotion of human rights. So the KNBS yielded to this, and after several consultations, midwife by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and of course the Department of Justice taking a very central role of this, we agreed to an MOU, which I will be speaking to the contents of that MOU and what it was expected to achieve. So that's how our conversations began. Now, the KNBS is established under the Statistics Act 2006. I believe it's not yet revised. And it's provided as a principal agency for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating statistical data. It's also charged with conducting the population and housing census every 10 years, as well as other censuses and surveys as the board will determine from time to time. So you get the connection between the Commission and the National Bureau of Statistics. So when the National Bureau of Statistics release data, would deal with collecting, analyzing, and disseminating statistical data, this particular data will be required by the Commission for purposes of programming. And as you program with this data, then you'll be ensuring that there's no one who is left behind in matters of protection and promotion of human rights. So we found a common ground, and based on this, we identified various areas that we think each of the partners will be bringing to the board, both the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and the National Bureau of Statistics. So based on these consultations, and with the focus of leaving no one behind, we had several consultations that led to development of a list of populations who were at the risk of being left behind in Kenya. So while we have at the international level groups that are left behind, we contextualize this to our local level. and based on various recommendations from concluding observations from various treaties, we developed a preliminary list of 29 groups of people that are left behind. And our conversations with KNBS was to ensure that as they collect data, they need to have a very specific focus on these groups, because traditionally, they have not been considered for programming, they have not been considered in national agenda, and the more they are left behind, the more their rights are violated, and the more issues of promotion and protection of human rights for them becomes a problem. So in this our preliminary list, we had persons with disabilities, we had women with disabilities for marginalized and pastoral communities, then we have children with disabilities, then we have persons with albinism, we have persons with mental health, then we have these internally displaced persons, and at that time it was important because the issues of post-election violence and those people that have been internally displaced, which was still a problem at the time of signing the MOU. Then we had the indigenous groups and ethnic minorities, and on this we had the Endolois, the Ogiek, and the Sengwer. Then we had children of stateless persons and minor migrants aged between 8 and 18, just before the adult age. Then Somali children in Kenya. Then we have lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, and intersex persons. So this list, the focus was really that as KNBS collects data, they will be having very deliberate and a focus on this group, so that when institutions require this data, they are in a position to access it, use their programming. And I think one of the things that several institutions do is that they reach out to KNBS for purposes of using the data that they have collected, so that they can use them for individual programming. So for us, the first step was really on developing, on agreeing on these 29 groups of persons left behind. We thought this was a great achievement, and that when this is utilized well, then these groups will have their rights promoted and protected. So what was in the MOU? So we signed the MOU on 26th of July 2017. It has since come to an end, and we are at the advanced stages of having the same renewed. So the purpose was to establish a program of cooperation between the two parties, that is the Commission and KNBS, to promote better understanding of the importance of developing and using statistical information to inform, implement and assess national policies and programs which may impact the respect, protection, and fulfillment of human rights. So for us, really the focus, the important part was this one. And we managed to bring the two aspects together: statistical information and protection and promotion of human rights. So KNBS will focus on statistical information. KNCHR will focus on using that statistical information to protect and promote human rights. So we had specific responsibilities that were assigned to each of the institutions, and they will allow me just to quickly go through them. That for the KNBS was to particularly advise the Commission on data collection methodologies and principles of statistics. And I dare mention principles of official statistics, because KNBS insists on official statistics. So principles of statistics, including selection of appropriate samples, and other research design principles where NCHR plans to conduct surveys. And at the Commission, we do several surveys, we do several researches. And the focus really was ensuring that as we do this, we will be getting the required input from the National Bureau of Statistics, so that the information that will be generated from these surveys would be used both by KNBS as official statistics, but also any other institution that will require this information for their programming. Now, KNBS was to advise the Commission on appropriate interpretation of statistics. So while you may have official statistics, there is need to have a proper advice on how to use it. And this can only be done by professionals who are the National Bureau of Statistics in this case. So the KNBS was to help advise the Commission from time to time on how do you interpret this data once it comes, so that you can use it for programming on matters of promotion and protection of human rights. Then KNBS was to cooperate NCHR in its respective technical working groups. And as we speak, the Commission is in, I think, 4 of NCHR, of KNBS working groups: the group on disability, the one on peace, security. Yes, but NCHR is in technical working groups of the National Bureau of Statistics. And through this, we as a commission ensuring that issues of human rights are conversed in these technical working groups and then taken out for implementation. And then the last one was domestication and development methodology. KNBS will advise the commission on how to adopt this and use them on SDG indicators. So KNCHR on its part would in particular provide requested advice on compliance with human rights standards. Then number 2, the Commission shall in particular advise KNBS on populations, groups that are left behind, the 29 groups that are enumerated and incorporated in planning programming by KNBS as they do their data collection. Then the Commission shall in particular provide conceptual information to assist with interpretation of data and implementation of data collection approaches. And then KNCHR shall in particular assist KNBS in their engagement with representative groups for purposes of participation in research design and improvement of data collection. Again, a focus on rights-based approaches to data collection and utilization. And then finally, the Commission would provide KNBS on international human rights standards and recommendations on data requirements. So how has this been utilized? The next process was how do you utilize the MOU? So the two institutions have been able to carry out evidence-based research, and we've had a couple of researchers that KNBS has advised the KNCHR on how best to utilize their expertise. The Commission and KNBS have been able to enhance state compliance with national, regional, and international instruments that are related to human rights. And then we have specific activities that the two institutions have been able to do together. So we have the collaboration with national statistical offices, of course the UN agencies, as well as various voluntary organizations that have asked to be part and parcel of this process, that are in a position to use this data once it is collected. Then monitoring the state's implementation of Article 43, Article 43 of the Constitution on ethics of rights, and then Agenda 63, and then the implementation of the various sustainable development goals. So in terms of the impact of this partnership, we've had KNCHR included in the statistical committees of KNBS. So we have disability statistics, security, and then the one in education. Then in the last census of 2019, we had KNCHR included in the technical working group, and the Commission played a very important role in terms of reviewing the census instruments, making recommendations on best survey. The challenges that you face as you collect this data, as you process it, and as you use it out there. We called 2019 census a census of firsts for many reasons. We had the inclusion of intersex as a third sex in the census instruments. We had the use of Washington group of questions, not there, and then on ethnic coding, we also provided an option for Kenyan, for people that we want to identify just as Kenyan. And then we also ensure that numerators instruction were in line with the child BA. I mean, these were things that were not there in the last census, the census of 2009. So for us, this was a great achievement that we gave to the MOU. Then there has been HRBA training, HRBA to SDGs data training, as well as various action points that have been derived from this. Then KNCHR providing national statistical officers contacts of CSOs on various thematic areas. And KNBS has been able to work with these CSOs on just getting the required data, which may not be at their disposal. And then we have specific guidance on HRBA data, focus on our complaints management system, and how we can disaggregate data which is there for use for programming. And then participation in preparation of various thematic reports at different levels. And then the conversation we are having today on SDG 16. It's not been without challenges. Implementing this requires resources, which has not been which has been limited. But I think the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and the Danish Institutes have been very helpful in just ensuring that we are able to meet some of the requirements and our commitments under the MOU on different aspects. And then, of course, COVID-19, the effects of COVID-19 in 2019 up to date, we have continued to experience it in terms of implementation of the MOU. The next step is really, we expect that as we'll be heading towards renewal of the MOU, which will be done in the next few weeks, the focus will be, apart from just the MOU, we would want to develop an action plan from it, which will ensure that we are able to track the various activities, commitments that we have made there, and how these can be used for purposes of protection and promotion of human rights. Then scheduled meetings from time to time, and then good faith and mutual respect, and of course, appreciation to our friends of the MOU. And the friends of MOU in this case are the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the Danish Institute for Human Rights, and the Office of the Attorney General that have been part and parcel of this process. And we'll also be getting back again the Office of the Attorney General just to help in designating the KNCHR as official custodian of Indicator 1610.1 in terms of provision of data. And that has been the MOU. So all this we have done in the context of that MOU, including what we'll be launching this morning. Thank you. So I want us to quickly move to the, we'll provide an opportunity just for thoughts and reflections after this. I would want to give ladies some few minutes, maybe 5 ladies, maybe 10, to get to speak particularly on data collection methodologies on 16. Then I will come back again and now speak to the contextualized methodology that we'll be launching today. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, I know Samson loves hearing about data, and I'm going to take you through what we've done on SDG 16 indicators. I'm not going to details, but just an overview of how we normally do our national framework for the indicators and what we've managed to collect. And as you've been told by my director, it's the mandate of the KNBS to manage the national SDG indicator framework. It's a database containing all the SDG indicators that we managed to collect or measure as a country. So it's not only SDG 16. Now, the main objective of ensuring that we collect indicators, specifically SDG 16 indicators, is to ensure that no one is left behind. And in order to achieve this, as a national statistical organization, we normally advocate for disaggregation, which is also part of what is contained in what we call the metadata. I don't know whether we are all aware of what we call the metadata. When you go to the SDG indicators, we have clear description of each and every step of, or what it takes to get into the indicator. In our case, we also have a metadata for SDG 16, 10.1. And if you Google, you'll get the metadata. It has the description of everything, including what my director was asking, what we mean by kidnapping, killings, and the rest. So we normally use that, and as a country, we normally contextualize the disaggregating variables. We do not stick to the international variables given, but we contextualize and see what we can add as a country. Now, for SDG 16, we did a pilot survey in 2020. Testing was, it was tier 3 of the indicators, some of the indicators which we've not been able to collect data, but we are really planning to collect data on those indicators. So we planned that after the pilot, we'll do a disaggregation. We included a lot of information like on migration, we had a whole module on disability, among others. So with that, we are able to report on quite a number of indicators. I know those with difficulties will not be able to see those indicators, but I just wanted us to have an overview of how the national SDG indicator framework looks like. It's in tabular form or Excel, and it goes from SDG goal 1 to 17. So our focus will be on goal 16. And sorry, the fonts are not okay, but I'll take you through the columns for us to be familiar with what we normally capture there. Now, we normally give the SDG number, so like SDG 16.1.1, then the description, like what is it? So is it a number of something, proportion of something? How do we measure the indicator? Then what's the unit of measurement? We have some indicators that are in percentage forms. We have some that are in numbers. We have some that are in per 100,000, like the one on homicide, among others. So we must specify the unit of measurement. Then we also have baseline data. Is there a survey or census or any data that have been collected before? And we must give that baseline information. So as we work on this or as we launch this one, we also need to have that in mind. Do we have baseline information? And then we have various years. I just chose on that, but currently we have up to 2021 for most of the SDG indicators. Then we must quote the source, and that's why we are keen to mention for this specific SDG indicator, we'll have the Human Rights Commission as our source of data. So it's upon the Commission to ensure that that data is collected. And then in case of any remarks, when you look at some of those data, yes, they are in numbers, but we might have a shift from the trend. In case of such changes, then we must give remarks or anything that we feel is relevant for that indicator. So I'll not go through all of them, but for SDG 16, we've managed to collect close to 20 indicators, and it's our joy that we'll have one more indicator under SDG 16. Now, on SDG 16, those who are not aware, it's the goal itself is to promote peaceful, inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. So those who've gone through the current SDG that we're discussing, can see where it falls. For example, providing access to justice for all. We really have a lot when it comes to SDG Indicator 16.10.1. Now, specific target, that is target 16.10, is to ensure public access to information and protect fundamental freedoms in accordance with national legislation and international agreements. You'll agree with me that SDG 16.10.1 is like addressing that fully, because we now want to know the number of cases of those who've been victims of killing, kidnapping, among others. So as we'll be getting more information from the next presenter, I just wanted us to have an overview of what Goal 16 is. Now, specifically for this indicator, we had a review meeting that is around May for all the SDGs, and we recommended that as a unit from our side, we'll have one additional indicator, so we proposed that. We quoted the Human Rights Commission as the source of that indicator, and for the baseline information, we said we'll discuss and agree and give more information, but the recommendation was accepted. So it means it's now upon us, we who are here, to ensure that come this year or next year, we have data to feed into the national indicator framework. Then maybe just a small addition, we signed into what we call inclusive data charter, where we are advocating for more disaggregation. So we believe even when we'll be collecting this SDG indicator, we'll ensure that we have disaggregated data. And we make sure that we don't preach. We remember the 10 principles. We keep on singing those 10 principles. So if at all we realize that maybe the information given will breach that confidentiality, we'll give guidelines or guidance. But now it's good news that it has been accepted. So let's take it up and ensure that we collect information. I don't want to dwell much on this methodology because the next presentation also has a bit of it. But it's good to know that from the indicator itself, sorry, let me take you back. The indicator is stating that, that the one in green, number of verified cases of killing, kidnapping, enforced disappearance, arbitrary detention, and torture of journalists, associated media personnel, trade unionists, and human rights advocates in the previous 12 months. Even from the statement itself, it shows that we'll have several sources of that data, right? And what are we going to measure? What's our unit of measure in that case? You know, as mathematicians, whenever we read such like indicators or information, what comes into our mind is like, how are we going to measure this? So even from the statement, even non-statisticians can tell us, what's our unit of measurement? Number or count. So we'll not do a percentage, we'll not have fractions. Most of our indicators are in fraction forms, where we have a numerator and denominator. This one is simple. The only bit is to ensure that we coordinate from all these sources, because I believe Human Rights Commission alone cannot get this information on journalists and all the other human rights defenders. So straight from the statement, I believe we now have an overview of what we are going to measure. We just need the numbers, but they must be verified, and we must check on those data quality checks that our director took us through to ensure that we'll be able to give reliable and consistent information. There's no need of collecting it this year, then come next year, Samson tells me that we do not have the information. Then we'll chase him away and tell him, no, we'll remove it from the framework. Yeah, that's all for now. I don't know if I've taken longer time than I was given. Thank you.
Yeah, Denise has stated that if we provide this data this year, next year it's not there, she'll chase me. Not you. Dr. Ellis. So will you put me on the chair of the commission? Because I'll be acting on behalf of the commission. Thank you, Andy. So thank you so much, Dennis. And you said this is one of the simplest. Yeah, in terms of measurement. Yeah, but I also want to say I think it's been one of the most difficult because it falls under Tier 3 indicators, and the difficulty has really been on sources and verification. Okay? So one of the things that we were attempting to through having this contextualized methodology is just to agree on what are the sources, because the sources exist out there. And the truth is that it's out there. I know Auma is very keen on this. But the question is, how do we verify this? Looking at the 10 quality checks that were provided by the director. I think when we were in Machakos, we had a lot of conversation on these quality checks that are required. And one of the things that we'll really be insisting on as we learn the methodology today and take it for use is how does the Commission ensure that these quality checks are adhered to, so that when we present the data eventually to you, it is not a questionable data. And it will be provided on a regular basis, I mean year in, year out. So I would briefly want to take you through what we have in the methodology, just for a few minutes before. So we entitle it Giving Life to Data Towards Promotion and Protection of Human Rights and the Realization of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the methodology we'll be launching today is 1610-1, and Dennis has spoken about this. Protection of journalists, media personnel, trade unionists, and human rights advocates. So at the national level, the focus really is that we have the context under which we are operating. And we are operating in a legal and policy framework that protects human rights defenders on a day-to-day basis. So if you look at the Bill of Rights under Chapter 4 of the Constitution, we have an elaborate Bill of Rights which provides for several rights, and human rights defenders are also entitled to these rights that are provided under the Bill of Rights. So the freedom from torture and cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment, right to life, equality and freedom from discrimination, right to dignity, all these rights, the same way they apply to other human beings, they also apply to the human rights defenders. And the relevant articles of the Constitution of these are as provided: 21, 1, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 31, 32, 34, all those. So this gives us a basis for intervening when it comes to violations that are visited on human rights defenders, particularly the ones on killings and forced disappearances, harassment, intimidation, and all that. So this is the beginning of the framework that we situate this within our constitutional framework. That if you look at the Bill of Rights, this is provided for, and therefore we cannot escape from intervening on violations that are visited on this group of defenders. There are statutory provisions that are very relevant to the work of human rights defenders and the team that will be working with on this. So we have the Access to Information Act 2016, which provides that every citizen has the right to access information held by the state. or information held by another person that is required for the exercise or protection of any right or fundamental freedom. So as human rights defenders do their work, they from time to time would make reference to Access to Information Act, that while you, as an institution, you might try to hold some information back from them, the Act provides that this information should be readily made available to them. Then we have the Prevention of Torture Act 2017, which provides for the prevention, prohibition, and punishment of acts of torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatments, and it provides for reparations. Again, this is relevant to human rights defenders because it's human rights defenders that face torture in the context of doing their work. So the fact that the Prevention of Torture Act exists 2017, it gives them a safeguard under which they operate, that when torture will happen to them, then they will be protected under this provision. Again, we have the Witness Protection Act 22006, which establishes the Witness Protection Agency and provides a framework for giving special protection on behalf of the state to persons who are in possession of important and relevant information. From time to time, human rights defenders possess really very critical information that is required for use, not just by them, but maybe other organs of the state and other institutions. So a framework really for protecting them is provided for under the Witness Protection Act. Then we have the Victim Protection Act 2014, which provides for the protection of victims of crime and abuse of power and to provide them with better information and support services. That if we get to a point where human rights defenders are victims of crime, they are in a position to be protected and provided the necessary redress under the Victim Protection Act 2014. Some 2-3 more legislations. We have the Criminal Procedure Code, CAP 75, which governs the conduct of criminal proceedings and sets out the law regulating arrests, issuance of bail and bond, and conduct of investigations and criminal trials. I think one of the things that human rights defenders have always faced, and we've had this conversation with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, the issue of punitive bails and bonds, and how these can be regulated to ensure that we do not criminalize the work of human rights defenders. Again, that is provided for under the Criminal Procedure Code. Then we have the Legal Aid Act 2016, which establishes NLAS, National Legal Aid Services, whose function, among others, to establish and administer a national aid scheme that is affordable, accessible, sustainable, credible, and accountable. That in the event human rights defenders require legal aid, it can be provided to them under these acts, and therefore they do not have to be worried as they do their work that in the event of an arrest, what is it that will befall me? Then we have the Fair Administrative Act of 2015, which recognizes the right of every person to fair administrative action that is expeditious, efficient, lawful, reasonable, and procedurally fair. That upon arrest, it is important that you are presented to court as fast as possible. You are arrested for a recognizable offense. And again, this is something that human rights defenders face from time to time, that they will be arrested and what is provided to them will not be fair, it may not be reasonable, and will not be expeditious. And we know the arrests of human rights defenders that takes place on Fridays, so that they can be presented in court on Monday, having to spend the entire weekend while in custody. So these are the statutory provisions that really guide this framework, that as we look on intervening on human rights defenders, we place it on the Constitution, and then we come down to our various laws of the land on how do these apply to the work of human rights defenders on a daily basis. But we've also gone ahead and identified very specific statutes that we think have provisions that impede the work of human rights defenders, which from time to time has always been used to ensure that the operating environment does not favor them. So we have the Official Secrets Act, which stipulates that any person who for any purpose prejudicial to the safety or interest of the public obtains, collects, records, publishes, or communicates in whatever manner to any other person any code word, plan, article, document, or information which is calculated to be, or might be, or is intended to be directly or indirectly useful to a foreign power, or this affected person shall be guilty of offense. Now, we know human rights defenders fall under this category. So from time to time, they could or will be arrested and charged under this, the Official Secrets Act. Number 2 is the Public Service Code of Conduct and Ethics 2016, and this is very particular to public officers. And we know there are human rights defenders who are also public officers. They might be whistleblowers in where they work. They might want to expose out some information which will make their lives under danger. But there is Section 23 of the Code, which obligates a public officer to take all reasonable steps to ensure that confidential, all secret information, all documents entrusted to his or her care are adequately protected from improper or inadvertent disclosure. That in the event that you disclose this information, you could actually be charged under this, while you could be acting in the context of being a human rights defender. So this makes the works of human rights defenders, especially those who are public servants, very difficult when it comes to the revealing out of information and ensuring that there's special protection and promotion of human rights. Then the next one again that impedes the work of human rights defenders is Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act of 2017, which prohibits the intentional publication of false information that is calculated or results in panic, chaos, or violence among citizens of the public, or which is likely to discredit the reputation of a person. And I know all of us seated in this room know that human rights defenders from time to time will publish information that comes across them. In most cases, it could be information, in some cases it could be information that is not verified. And in a case where it is not verified, the state could decide to charge you under Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act. And again, that will take you to the system. Then we have the Kenya Information and Communications Act of 1998, which provides that a person who by means of a licensed telecommunication system sends message or other matter that is grossly offensive or an indecent, obscene, or menacing character, or B, sends a message that he knows to be false for purposes of causing annoyance, inconvenience, or needless anxiety to another person, commits an offense and shall be liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 50,000 or to imprisonment or a term not exceeding 3 months, or both. Again, human rights defenders from time to time, they fall victim to this, and most of them are charged under this act. Then we have the NGO Coordination Act. Again, human rights defenders. We have NGOs that are registered under this, and from time to time, this provision has been used to curtail their work. Then we have the Public Order Act, which obligates a person, including intending to convene a public meeting or public possession, to notify the regulating officer of such intent at least 3 days, but not more than 14 days. This has been an interesting one, especially for my friends from the social justice centers. And the question has always been, is it notification or permission? Do you go to ask for permission from the officer commanding a police station to carry out a public event, or do you go and notify them so that you can carry out the public event? So again, from time to time, I know Olan, you've been arrested several times on this, on notification, and Auma, I know you've been a victim to this from time to time. On this is not a licensed one, and therefore we have to take you in. Then we have the Penal Code, and then last we have the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which allows the official of application of registration and the revocation of registration of associations linked to terrorist groups. And you know there are human rights defenders of organizations, may not necessarily be in Kenya, that have been from time to time denied registration because it is thought that they are linked to terrorism activities. So that is at the national level. So at the national level we have our laws, we have the constitution, we have the various legislations that support the work of human rights defenders, and then we have those legislations that in a way or another tends to limit the work of defenders in executing their mandate. So the framework that we'll be launching today adopts what is provided at the international level by making reference to the standards on protection of human rights defenders, beginning with the principle that everyone has the rights, individually and in association with others, to promote and strive for protection and realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms at national and international level. And the focus really on this is that protection of human rights, that human rights defenders do not necessarily need to identify with institutions. They could be individuals. That are just keen on ensuring that there's better protection and promotion of human rights. So whether they act as individuals or they act as institutions, they are provided for, and they should be assisted from time to time to ensure that they are given a better environment to promote this work, to do their work. So the framework that we are launching today will be speaking to that international framework. Now, why did we decide to contextualize this? I think the first thing is that Kenya has been a long champion of the SDGs and participated in their design, launch, and has made various commitments to ensure that they are implemented as is required. Closely linked to that is that we have 3 tiers of indicators, and KBS, I know, are the experts on this. So we have tier 1, we have tier 2, and then we have tier 3, and 16.10.1 falls under tier 3. So the government further identified the key indicators that they would monitor as SDGs are implemented, and those are identified under tier 1 and tier 2. Those that have known methodologies, they have known data collection methods, and they are known sources of data, and their data is readily available. Now, the methodology that we'll be launching today, 16.10.1, do not have a known methodology at the local level, and therefore the focus really is on contextualizing what we have at, from the international level, and now using that to collect available data and use that for reporting at international level. And that's the point we are making in the third point, that Kenya is not monitoring the implementation of this SDG, which is 10.1, for the reason that the methodology is yet to be developed and tested for Kenya. And therefore, that is our main task. In Kenya, CSOs have been collecting information, and all the CSOs present here today have all this information on this indicator. But they have nowhere to channel it because there's no known methodology. And if you take it to National Bureau of Statistics, they are not going to use it because they say this has not been verified, and therefore we cannot use it to report at the international level, and even at the national level, because it's going to provide false information. Then we've said that other government agencies such as the Commission and of course IPOA, they also collect some of information on enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, and those are state institutions, which data that comes from them should ideally be accepted by the National Statistical Office. And therefore, the argument we are making today is that if these are state institutions, then you should be in a position to accept their data, and as well as those institutions that they work with, which bring for them data from time to time. So the Murus, the social justice centers, the Happy Africa, and all that. Then Chapter 4 of the Bill of Rights recognizes and protects human rights and fundamental freedoms to preserve and dignity of individuals and communities, and to promote social justice and the realization of the potential of all human beings. Again, we put the indicator under this on Chapter 4, and I think I've spoken to that. So in the methodology, we have what we call the national custodian. And the national custodian for this indicator will be SDG. So the Commission is going to be formally recognized, and designated as the national custodian. So all institutions that work on this indicator will be providing their data to the Commission, who will do verification and then have this data channel to National Bureau of Statistics. We've identified data partners in the methodology, and the Commission will integrate data on relevant cases provided by state bodies. Of of course, IPOA, National Police Service, National Crime Research Center, those are the state agencies, as well as CSOs that have data on this. So we've enumerated them, IPOA, National Crime Research Center, the Judiciary, the ODPP, National Police Service, Defenders Coalition, IMLU, Kenya Human Rights Commission, Muhuri, Haki Africa, the Media Council of Kenya, KOTU, as well as social justice centers. And we have put a rider to this, that this list is not conclusive. And therefore, from time to time, the Commission together with KNBS will be reviewing it, because information will come from other sources. And once we agree on that, then we will amend it and ensure that we provide room for accepting of more information. The next element on this is really the definition of terms, and the director from National Bureau of Statistics spoke about it. So we've provided agreed international definition on terms. So we've provided definition for journalists, trade unionists, human rights defenders, killing, enforced disappearance, all of these. Like, I know a good example is the CSOs have always had a problem with the National Police Service on what constitutes extrajudicial killings. So in that methodology, we've provided agreed definitions on what will constitute all those acts, including verified cases and other harmful acts. Then Rennie spoke about the calculation method. And she insists, she reiterated that this will be done in numbers. So there's no denominator and numerator. So it will just be on numbers. So the calculation method that's provided for this. But the most important thing is that you will be taken into account a hierarchy of violations or abuses drawing on the most serious offense. That if you have, you could have a person who is, he was enforcedly disappeared, he was tortured, and he was killed, and he had also been in arbitrary detention, and he was also kidnapped. So one person having several violations. Now, my colleagues from National Bureau of Statistics will tell you that killing will now be number one in this case, because that is the most serious one. That will be the most serious offense. So the methodology takes into consideration that. Then the methodology also provides for the minimum data disaggregation, that there are minimum bare elements that data that will be provided will have to stick to. So the issues of sex, male, female, intersex, age group, the type of act, the perpetrator, the geographical location of the incident, the disability, the nationality, ethnicity, religious affiliation, and then the thematic area of the person who is affected. Again, this will have to be very clear in the data that will be provided because it makes it easy for verification. I think one of the problems from experience, you'll have cases where you'll be told, this case has happened. Then you ask, bring for me the next of kin, bring for me more details. And then the person goes missing. Okay? So under the methodology, we are very keen on ensuring that all this information is provided for ease of follow-up and also for ease of drawing the required intervention. Then data integration and case duplication, and we spoke about duplication here in the morning. That you have one case reported by the Commission, reported by IPOA, reported by Kituo cha Sheria, and reported by Kenya Human Rights Commission. Those could be reported as how many cases? 4. When in ideal case it is just 1. So there will be steps to be taken to ensure that we do not have duplication of this data. So that when it comes to reporting, we are not reporting one and the same thing in 7 institutions when ideally it is just the same case. So we'll ensure that duplication will not take place. So we'll have NCHR on data from government agencies that I've spoken to, and then data from civil society organizations that not maybe that will be verified by the Commission before inclusion and sharing with the National Statistical Office. Now, on national reporting, the KNBS shall help the Commission to develop descriptive statistics out of the data that we'll be providing, and then use this for publication. The Commission will also be reporting this data in its annual report, which we do on a yearly basis. And then these reports are shared with relevant organizations, institutions for intervention. And then on the part of our partner of HCHR is that from time to time we'll be coordinating with the Commission and KNBS and sharing this data with you for purposes of inclusion at the human rights indicators and data units, as well as with the Office of the UN Resident Coordinator, who will be copied in such exchanges. And those are the contents of our methodology. Thank you. So I think at this point, I would ask for any. Could I have a brief plenary for 10 minutes? Any comments, thoughts, advices, and then after that we will ask the chair and I think to launch the methodology. So I would want to open it up. And Alex has the microphone. Any inputs, any comments, any thoughts? Yes, Linessa?
Maybe just for clarity, there is a mention that KNCHR will be the custodian of the data that comes to onward forwarding to KNBS. Does it mean that verification of that data is done at KNCHR, or whoever shares the data with KNCHR has already verified the same?
So verification? My colleague from GEC, from National Gender Equality Commission.
Thank you very much. I would like to first appreciate the fact that for once we are going to have a framework that will capture data on IPs and even the ethnic minorities. I know when my colleague from KNBS was presenting, she did indicate that when they were doing the pre-test, that they were unable to get data on some indicators. I'd like to just know if IPs were in that bracket or the ethnic minorities. Thank you.
Lal? Alex, you can come front.
Thanks a lot for this great work. My concern is the aspect of verification. We've had some cases like killings or enforced disappearances cases where the family, because of fear, doesn't want to follow up the cases. We've had a lot of them. And when it comes to verification, they will need some things like the OB and all that stuff. And most of the time, these killings don't end up at the data stage, because once you don't have the OB, that case is not authentic. Yet the person disappeared or the person was killed. So I don't know what framework we use so that even if someone is not, or the family is not willing to follow up through the community justice centers or through the community-based organizations, we can confirm. Because once you don't have an OB, they'll be difficult, even issues like post-mortem and the rest. So for me, that looks like a gray area that we need to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Samson, for the presentation. You listed 29 groups. I didn't see, but pastoralists, I don't know how much I would consider them as a group of people to be considered or not. And I was trying to see where the pastoralists are there.
Okay. Commissioner Sarah?
Yes, in the last presentation, where you mentioned disability, maybe there are other vulnerable groups who are not disabled need to be considered, like the elderly and others. So other vulnerabilities, I don't seem to see them in the list.
That's the last one. I don't want to go to that. Okay. So where the groups left behind, I think let me begin with you, Vice Chair. That the development of this the preliminary list of population who are at the risk of being left behind was based on concluding observations that we get after reporting at the international level that refer to different aspects. So I think that is the starting point. So if you look at concluding observations under each, when reporting under various treaties, we were really able to just tease out what are these groups that have been left behind. And I think the group that you are referring to could best be captured under group number 22, which is population living in arid and semi-arid areas. So they will not necessarily be, because that's not how it's referred at international level and when in our concluding observations. So if you look at group number 22, I think it's well captured there. Oh, okay. Commissioner Sir.
Yes, yeah, sorry, in terms of maybe the issues of maybe healthcare, there's so many complaints where people are violated and they take reports.
No, that is not under the international framework. It is not there. It has not been one of the concluding observations. So it could be an issue at the national level because we developed this specifically on the treaty body concluding observations. So it could be an area to think about because the list is not conclusive and it can be developed further depending on the realities that we have from time to time. So that when programming is done, we focus on those specific groups. So I think that is one. Number two, I think focuses on the issue of verification. I think verification will be done at two levels, Linesta and OLAL, and we will be developing what is required for this verification to take place. But the first point of verification would be from the institution that is reporting. That if we are coming a case from the social justice centers, they will do the first level of verification. And we develop what is required for this. Then the second level of verification will be done at the commission once that data comes to us. I think the important point to underscore in this is that KNBS will not be doing any verification of the data once we pass it over to them. So it will be the onus will be on us to ensure that the data that is provided for us, we will develop an acceptable framework for this verification so that we also do not use it as a mechanism of leaving some people behind. Okay? That it will take into consideration all those the realities, because we know the realities under which some of these cases exist. We know family dynamics. We know the realities we know the realities, the environment where some of these cases operate, like the informal settlements and all that. So I think we'll take into consideration all those when we are developing, when doing the verification. Okay. Yes, so I think you can answer, then Chair, you get ready to do the launch. So at least you can answer on the indigenous persons and data under that.
Yeah, there are two areas or two questions from GEC On the indigenous persons, there's someone we call Mr. Minority. I think he's your neighbor there.
He's here.
He has asked about that group for a very long time. But now from our side, we normally ensure that we include variables like ethnicity, nationality, migratory status where possible. And in this case, even when we were doing the pilot for the SDG 16, we had those variables within our options. So from there, maybe from the data, we can now dig and see groups that have been left behind. But we gave the opportunity of giving, for example, ethnicity. And now from there, we can now get those who've been left behind. On the elderly, we also have age. It's a mandatory variable for us. So it's now upon us, whenever we carry out a survey, like for example, if it's human rights based, then it's the Human Rights Commission now to advise us on how to group those age categories and ensure that we bring out or tease out the groups that have been left behind. So for the elderly, for example, we do normally cater for them using the age as a variable. For the pastoralist, it has been answered. I didn't get one on health. Maybe you can repeat, pardon? Yes. Yes. What I know, we have our whole SDG goal on health. Two, we equally have our whole unit within the division dealing with health statistics. And even when we are carrying out the DHS, Demographic and Health Survey, we captured a lot of information, including access to health services, even the distance, among others. So when you disaggregate that, for example, by geographical region, or even counties, for example, you can easily, the data will speak for itself and show areas that have been left behind. So it's not a must that maybe we capture them here, but in our data, we normally bring those out clearly. Of late, we even do in form of maps for most of the indicators at county level to show the groups that have been left behind, counties that have been left behind. So from our health experts, our deputy director is here with us in charge of social statistics. We have our own unit dealing with that, and they're normally good advocates for ensuring that we have disaggregated data. So when you go through our DHS survey, it's not yet out report. We have the 2014. We have quite a number of surveys that we've done on health. You'll get good indicators there. I don't know whether I've answered the rest. Samson, come. I was waiting for you.
Yeah, that's what I'm ready.
Yeah, come.
Thank you. Thank you, Lennis. So unfortunately, I keep calling you Gladys all the time. So we want to get to the next stage of launching the methodology. So, Chair, we want to invite you. We do the launch here. So we'll invite Chair. Chair, you can invite the table. And then I want to ask Lal. And I also want to ask Mugambi. I'm told that we are popping sounds before the launch, so there'll be no gunshots. There'll be no gunshots. Okay? And then our colleague from DCI. IAU. IAU. So leave now, you can do the photos to announce the moment.
Academia, join us. Hadi, join us. Please come to the photo where minorities. Nice. Serious? So what's your PWD Kansas?
Commissioner Mariam is here. Commissioner
I have a question. How will the photos be shared? You don't mind?
Usually just
Where?
I think we've come to the end of today's session, so I would just want to invite Madam Bowen from National Bureau of Statistics to pass a vote of thanks, and then that will be the end. And as she comes, I want to recognize the presence of Professor Mario, Commissioner of Kenya National Commission of Human Rights. And of course, an apology from our commissioner, Commissioner Omar, one of the commissioners.
Thank you very much. I am Rosemary Bowen from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, as you are told in the morning. And I want to take this opportunity to appreciate everyone that has been present for the launch of this important methodology. For KNBS, we are very passionate about measuring well, because it is important to plan using accurate statistics. And therefore, for KNBS, we are very, very happy that a methodology has been launched so that all that are concerned to be able to collect data based on internationally recognized methodologies and standards. And therefore, this morning, I want to appreciate everybody that has participated in this event. Particularly, I want to point out the chair of the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights for being here together with all the commissioners present. I want to appreciate the other stakeholders, the OHCR, the IPOA, I may not be able to list everyone, but all the stakeholders that have been present, that have taken their time to see through the process of the launch. And the launch is great. The implementation is very important. And we are so happy that our stakeholders are here so that when we go out, we implement well. So without saying much, I just want to appreciate everyone. Even if your institution or your name has not been mentioned, you are in this auditorium today. We want to appreciate you for being here. And as we discuss, let us go and implement. Let us go and make sure that this SDG indicator is well measured and that we are able to ensure that nobody is left behind. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Thank you so much, Madam Moen, and thank you for accepting to ensure that no one is left behind. So I think at this point we come to the end of this, and we can now leave at our own pleasure. I think there's still some tea and snacks outside that we can take. For the colleagues from the Commission, I would want to ask that you stay behind for some time. We have a small meeting for the Commissioners, and we see us just a quick one. So thank you.
Kuna time ulikuwa unakuja kuona kakuli? Kitambo. Kitambo. Yes, yes, yes. Kama unaweza kuja from the set to kama but sasa wewe ni fully on. Which yeah, data sasa. Yes.